All right, I want to go over a few basic elements of geometry. We're just kind of getting started, but there's a very specific way that geometry is both spoken about and written. Geometers, mathematicians generally don't like to write long paragraphs. We use mathematical notation. And that's a lot of what happens here in this course. So, for example, some of the basic geometric elements. All of geometry is built on this initial concept, and that is a dot. Now, it's not a dot. It's a representation of a geometrical concept known as a point. Okay? It's a representation of something called a point. Now, it's a representation, not the actual object, because a point actually has no thickness, no depth, no width, no dimensions at all. It is a locus or a location in space, and it has no thickness. So for me to represent a point if I were trying to be realistic, it would be invisible. It is a location in space. But we represent it with a single dot on a piece of paper. Now, a point can exist in a plane. It exists, for example, at the end of my pen, at the end of my pointer here. So it is a location in space. And we typically identify or mark a point on a piece of paper with a dot, but we also identify it with a symbol. The symbol for a point is a capital letter. Now we can distinguish between points by calling this point A and this other point B. Now notice I used capital letters, not lowercase letters. That's very important to note. Capital letters distinguish points. And so in your answers, make sure to use capital letters when identifying any points. Okay? Now, with points, we can extend that to now that I've got 2 points, I can identify some other things. For example, I can define something called a segment. Or actually, yeah, I'm going to start by defining a segment. So a segment is 2 points, any 2 points, and all the points between those points. And there's a very precise definition that we're not going to get into. But this is known as a segment. Okay, now the graphical representation of a segment is 2 points with a line kind of connecting them between them. But again, just as in points, segments have no thickness. Okay, and so if I were to if I were to draw the actual segment, it would be invisible because it has no thickness, thinner than a spider web. All right, but so we represent it on paper this way. Okay. And we can say point A for point A. And for segment AB, the symbol is A and B with a line segment drawn above it. Point A, the symbol is just the letter A. Okay? Capital letters always, never lowercase. Lowercase letters are reserved for something else. Now, if I extend this representation to go forever in one direction, I'll put an arrow on that to indicate that that goes forever and never ever stops. Now we've got a concept known as a ray. And again, this is a representation of a ray, not an actual ray, because again, a ray has no thickness and it goes forever. It never ever stops in that direction. Okay? And we call what I have drawn ray AB. Now the symbol for ray AB is a capital A and a capital B with a line segment drawn above it, but an arrow over the B. Notice it's very important which letter the arrow is over. Okay? I can put the arrow over B because the ray starts at A and goes through B and continues forever in that direction. It would be incorrect to put the arrow over A. It would also be incorrect to write BA and put the arrow over the A. It would be correct to write the BA and put the arrow over the B. So there are often more than one way to represent an object in geometry. But typically, we would write it AB with an arrow over the B. Again, capital letters. Okay, I'm going to extend this concept one more step now. And we're going to extend this in both directions. Now we've gotten to the concept known as a line. Okay, this is a line. Okay, this is line AB. That's the name of the object. And the symbol for it is AB with an arrow above it. Note that I can write it AB. I can also write it BA with 2 arrows. Both are acceptable. Okay, and that is a line. Okay, one more concept we want to represent. Okay, I want to put a point over here, call it C. Note that A, B, and C are not on the same line. I cannot draw a single line that passes through all 3 points. So A, B, and C are said to be non-collinear. So A, B, and C are non-collinear. Okay, non-collinear. So they are not in the same line, non-collinear. Whereas if I put another point on the line, call it D, then AD and B are collinear. And I actually think collinear has 2 ends. Maybe not. I'll have to check. Okay? AD and B are collinear. All right? Or AC and B are non-collinear, not on the same line. And then we have one more thing, and that is a plane. A plane consists basically of a flat surface. Think of your wall in the room, think of your ceiling, think of your floor. But those are only physical representations of a plane, because just like in a line that has no end, a plane has no edges, no boundaries. It is a flat surface that extends forever in all directions. And that's really important to understand, that a plane is a flat surface that has no boundaries, no ends, no edges. It extends forever in all directions. We can't really draw that. So on a piece of paper, we draw a parallelogram, kind of like a 3D representation on a 2D piece of paper of a flat surface. We can draw it with edges because otherwise we wouldn't draw anything. And just like a line and a point have no thickness, a plane has no thickness as well. It is less than paper thin. It is infinitely thin. Now we typically name planes by marking 3 non-collinear points. I'll call them D, or E, F, and G to distinguish from the others. E, F, and G. And we can say this is plane E, F, G. Okay? Now it is possible for me to do this. I can put a nice bold letter on here and call it Q. I can also call this plane Q. And you're going to find that alternate representation. But note that Q is not a point on the plane, but it is actually a label identifying the entire plane. So plane EFG or plane Q are valid representations. And there are no symbols for plane. You just write the word. All right, I hope that's helpful. You have a wonderful day, and let me know if you need any help. Feel free to book a live lesson.